And the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Mr. President, in accordance with the New Jersey Open Public Meetings Act, adequate notice has been provided to the Star-Ledger, the Jersey Journal, and to the public at large establishing the date, time, and location of this meeting. May I have a roll call of those present, please?
Amador, absent. Gonzalez.
Present.
James.
Present.
Here.
Absent.
Present.
Ramos, absent. Plum, absent. President.
Ramos is here.
Here. Ramos is here.
And MacIver is here.
Mr. President, Mr. Clerk, we want to take a moment of silence for Valerie James, who was here, was at the Department of Recreation for almost 30-some years or so. And also a moment of silence, too, for our colleague on the City Council of the loss of his uncle, Councilman Ramos's uncle. We want to take a moment of silence for those two folks, for Valerie and for Councilman Ramos's uncle. Thank you.
Mr. President, let me congratulate the clerk for fixing the glitches on the anthem.
Thank you. All right. Mr. Clerk?
Employee of the month.
Okay. You're welcome, Councilman.
The administration loves him, by the way.
To the agenda. Council of the whole to accept the reports of the boards and commissions.
Question? Roll call.
Amador, absent. Gonzalez.
Yes.
James.
Yes.
Callum.
Yes.
Driver.
Yes.
Osborne.
Yes.
Ramos.
Yes.
President Quintana.
Yes.
Ordinance is on first reading. 6FA is an ordinance to permit the short-term use in all legal dwellings and establish minimum standards for short-term rental use. Council of the whole.
Roll call.
Amador, absent. Gonzalez.
Yes.
James.
Yes.
Callum.
Yes.
Driver.
Yes.
Osborne.
Yes.
Ramos.
Yes.
President Quintana.
Yes.
B is an ordinance adding a new title, new chapter 14 entitled Short-Term Rentals to the title 18 entitled Housing Code. Council of the whole to adopt.
Actually, we want to ask that we can defer all of the,
State your name for the record.
I apologize. Good morning or good afternoon, or Kenyatta Stewart, City of Newark Corporation Council. I'm going to ask that we can defer all of the Airbnb items, so all the short-term rental items.
We just advanced one of them.
We just voted.
Motion to
Yeah, can you do a motion?
Motion to reconsider 6FA. Roll call to reconsider. Council of the whole.
Roll call.
Amador, absent. Gonzalez.
Yes.
James.
Yes.
Callum.
Yes.
Driver.
Yes.
Osborne.
Yes.
Ramos.
Yes.
President Quintana.
Yes.
All right, let's do 6FA, 6FB, 6FC, and 6FD. Council of the whole to defer action at this time.
Roll call.
Amador, absent. Gonzalez.
Yes.
James.
Yes.
Callum.
Yes.
Driver.
Yes.
Osborne.
Yes.
Ramos.
Yes.
President Quintana.
Yes. Continue.
6FE is an ordinance to amend Chapter 12 Restaurants and Retail Sales and Service Establishments by adding Section 14 Shared Kitchen License and Sections 15 Shared Kitchen User Licenses. Council hold to adopt on first reading?
Roll call.
Amador, absent. Gonzalez.
Yes.
James.
Yes.
Callum.
Yes.
Driver.
Yes.
Osborne.
Yes.
Ramos.
Yes.
President Quintana.
Yes.
Mr. President, the ordinance adopted on first reading today will be advertised in accordance with law, and a public hearing will be held at the council meeting, the regular council meeting of February 20th, beginning at 6:30 p.m. here in the council chamber. Ordinance on public hearing, second reading and final passage. 6PSNFA is an ordinance to enter into a contract for the purchase of real property of Albert and Albert Development Aren't we deferring this one? Council of the whole to,
Sponsoring. I'm sponsoring.
You were second. It was a second.
Jane, Council, is there anyone present that wishes to be heard on this ordinance?
Yes, someone appearing?
Public, right?
Yes,
Deborah Salter, City of Newark. And this is the Shani Baraka Center property, right?
yes.
Okay, I asked questions yesterday as to whether the property had been inspected and appraised and how much it was appraised for. I know that when the property was first opened for the Women's Center, that in the first week, there were leaks and cracks and things broken and rodents and all kinds of things like that. So I know moving forward, there were different issues with the property itself. So if we, because I'm believing, and you can correct me, that the money that's coming or being used to purchase the center is city dollars. Is that right, or is it a grant? I don't know where the money's coming from, but if it is city dollars, I believe it behooves you, on behalf of the people, to make sure that the money that's already been paid should be adequate enough for the building versus the $2 million that they're saying that the property is worth. So I'm saying to you, I'm asking a question as to whether or not you all have had an inspection, had it properly appraised, for the proper amount of money to be paid, because I believe that the amount that's been paid in rent already should be compensatory for the property as to what it was when we first opened. There were many things wrong with the building. Unless it has been corrected, upgraded, updated, then, so that's my question. So if you have not done that, I would say, on behalf of the citizens, that that's something that you have done before you pay them any more funds to purchase.
Any other speaking? Clerk? No one else appearing?
Mr. President, can you, just a moment, we need to check something regarding this particular ordinance. Look at last week's agenda. Okay. Mr. President, due to the fact that this ordinance was adopted at the first reading at the special meeting of the 29th, we do not have enough time at this time for this to have second reading. Council of the whole to defer action until the meeting of February 20th.
Roll call.
Amador absent. Gonzalez.
Yes.
James.
Yes.
Cano. Geiger.
Yes.
Osborne.
Yes.
Ramos.
Yes.
President Quintana.
Yes.
And we are leaving the public hearing open.
Right.
B is an ordinance for lease for the parking authority. Also, this was done at the special meeting last week, and therefore we do not have enough time between meetings. Council of the whole to defer action to the meeting of February 20th.
Roll call.
Amador.
Yes.
Gonzalez.
Yes.
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 Geiger.
Yes.
Yes.
Ramos.
Yes.
Absent. President Quintana.
Yes.
Mr. President,
Yes, Councilman Gonzalez.
in view of the fact that this is, we're changing the footage that is being leased, don't we have to re-announce?
Do we have the change? Do we have the correction?
Yes, it's right here.
Let's do a reconsideration and amend it so that it goes forward at second reading, so it doesn't have to get another reading next week. So for Council of the whole to reconsider 6F, 6PS and FB.
Roll call.
B.
Amador.
Abstain.
Gonzalez.
Yes.
Yes.
Cano.
Yes.
Geiger.
Yes.
Osborne.
Yes.
Ramos.
Is this what, just to reconsider the item?
Reconsider 6B. We're going to amend it and move it forward.
Yeah, I'll vote to reconsider it.
Yes?
Absent. President Quintana.
Yes to reconsider.
Now, Council of the Whole to amend, you have the package the amendments are in your folders.
Right here. Right.
We'll call to amend, Council of the Whole.
Amador,
Abstain.
Gonzalez,
Yes to amend it.
James,
Yes.
Callum,
Yes.
Guyver,
Yes.
Osborne,
Yes.
Abstain.
Trump absent, President Quintana.
Abstain.
Now, Council of the Whole to adopt as amended. Yes, roll call.
Amador,
Abstain.
Gonzalez,
Abstain.
James,
Yes.
Callum,
Yes.
Guyver,
Yes.
Osborne,
Yes.
Ramos,
Abstain.
President Trump absent, President Quintana.
Abstain.
Okay, this item failed to adopt, but we need to defer action on it and maintain the public hearing. Council of the Whole to defer action at this time.
Amador,
Yes.
Gonzalez,
Yes, but I thought that by
If it fails to adopt, doesn't it
failing,
automatically?
it's deferred automatically.
It stays on the agenda.
Yes. So
Yes.
we don't have to vote on it.
Yes, we'll suspend, we'll do it with a roll call. So let's go back to page 7, resolutions. 7R1A is an exception to public bidding agreement with government entity. This is to formally strengthen and build capacity within the city of Newark and deliver services to local community. Council of the Whole.
Amador,
Yes.
Gonzalez,
Yes.
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 Guyver,
Yes.
Osborne,
Yes.
Ramos,
Yes.
Trump absent, President Quintana.
Yes.
7R1B is an authorizing resolution for the Department of Administration for a temporary emergency appropriation for the WIC program. 1C is an authorizing resolution for the Department of Administration for a temporary emergency appropriation for the Home Investment Partnership Program. Through 7R1C, Council of the Whole to adopt.
Roll call.
Amador,
Yes.
Gonzalez,
Yes.
Yes.
Callum,
Yes.
Guyver,
Yes.
Osborne,
Yes.
Ramos,
Yes.
Trump absent, President Quintana.
Yes.
7R1D is a authorizing resolution for the Department of Administration for a bid contract to provide work boots. 1E is a authorizing resolution for the Department of Administration for a bid contract to provide water meters and parts. Through 7R1E, Council of the Whole to adopt.
Amador,
Yes.
Gonzalez,
Yes.
Yes.
Callum,
Yes.
Guyver,
Yes.
Osborne,
Yes.
Ramos,
Yes.
Trump absent, President Quintana.
Yes.
7R2A is a authorizing resolution for application for grant funds, application for funds to support the development of the vacant Green Acres land into the Frederick Douglass Park. Council of the Whole to defer action at this time.
Roll call.
Amador,
Yes.
Gonzalez,
Yes.
Callum,
Yes.
Guyver,
Yes.
Osborne,
Yes.
Ramos,
Yes.
Trump absent, President Quintana.
Yes.
7R3A is an authorizing, ratifying, and amending resolution for the Department of Engineering for a professional services contract, Second Amendment to extend contract 06-2015PS at no additional cost to conduct a comprehensive stormwater utilities facility study in the city of Newark. Council of the Whole to adopt.
Roll call.
Amador,
Yes.
Gonzalez,
Yes.
Yes.
Callum,
Yes.
Guyver,
Yes.
Osborne,
Yes.
Ramos,
Yes.
Trump absent, President Quintana.
Yes.
7R3B is a authorizing and amending resolution for the Department of Engineering for a grant agreement to amend resolution to accept an additional $1.8 million in grant funding for the Bergen Street pedestrian safety corridor and the Martin Luther King Boulevard pedestrian safety corridors improvements. Council of the whole to defer action at this time.
Roll call.
Amador,
Yes.
Gonzalez,
Yes.
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 Geiger,
Yes.
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 Trump absent, President Quintana.
Yes. Continue.
7R4A is a authorizing resolution for the Department of Finance for the sale of bonds, $51 million. 5B is also an authorizing resolution for the Department of Finance for the sale of notes and bonds for $5.5 million. Council of the whole to adopt.
Roll call.
Amador,
Yes.
Gonzalez,
Yes.
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 Geiger,
Yes.
Osborne,
Yes.
Ramos,
Yes.
Trump absent, President Quintana.
Yes.
Mr. President,
Yes, Councilor Gonzalez.
finally, these bonds are the ones to pay Essex County for the acquisition of the properties that we leased to them like 10 years ago. I believe that, if I'm correct, this is what this one does.
Good afternoon, Benjamin Guzman, Department of Finance. You are correct, Councilman. These are to pay the outstanding bonds held by the Essex County Improvement Authority, at which point the city of Newark will then retake possession of these 16 buildings.
Thank you.
Thank you. Continue, Mr. Clerk.
7R5A is a ratifying authorizing resolution for the Department of Health and Community Wellness for planning, research, and evaluation services related to the city's fiscal year supporting male survivors of violence demonstration project. Council of the whole to adopt. Roll call.
Roll call.
Amador,
Yes.
Gonzalez,
Yes.
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 Geiger,
Yes.
Osborne,
Yes.
Yes.
Trump absent, President Quintana.
Yes.
Mr. President, the next four resolutions are ratifying authorizing resolutions for the Department of Health and Community Wellness for a contract with subrecipient for emergency shelter services. 5B is the Urban League of Essex County. C is the YMCA. D is Access Family Services, Inc. And E is the United Community Corporation. Through 7R5E, Council of the whole to adopt.
Roll call.
Amador,
Yes.
Gonzalez,
Yes.
James,
Yes.
Yes.
Geiger,
Yes.
Osborne,
Yes.
Ramos,
Yes.
Trump absent, President Quintana.
Yes.
Mr. President,
Yes, Councilman Amador.
2 weeks ago or last week, at a special meeting, we approved about $265,000 of grants to different entities that are involved in the homeless situation. Today, we're approving about $235,000 to 4 additional entities. I'd like a letter, and I was going to do this through a motion, but I take the opportunity now to do this. I'd like a letter to be sent to each one of them to send us a report card in terms of activity that each one of them has had in the past year and their involvement with the homeless situation, in terms of how many people they have served, and what types of services were provided to the homeless population of the city of Newark. The two amounts are kind of close to $500,000. I think we continue to provide funding for these organizations, and we don't know what they do.
Great.
And this is an opportunity to do so.
Yes, sir.
Clerk has noted.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
7R6A is a authorizing resolution for the Department of Law for settlement of workers' compensation claim. 6B is a authorizing resolution for the Department of Law for settlement of a workers' compensation claim. 6C is a ratifying authorizing resolution for the Department of Law for professional services contract for bond counsel services. Through 7R6C, Council of the whole to adopt.
Roll call.
Amador,
Yes.
Gonzalez,
Yes.
James,
Yes.
Callum,
Yes on B and C, abstain on A.
Guyver,
Yes on B and C, abstain on A.
Osborne,
Yes.
Ramos,
Yes.
Trump absent, President Quintana.
Yes.
7R8A is are various expressions of profound sorrow and regret. 8B are various recognizing and commending resolutions. 7R8C is a authorizing resolution for the Office of Municipal Council City Clerk for a Board of Adjustment appointee. Through 7R8C, Council of the Whole to adopt.
Roll call.
Amador,
Yes.
Gonzalez,
Yes.
Yes.
Callum,
Yes.
Guyver,
Yes.
Osborne,
Yes.
Ramos,
Yes.
Trump absent, President Quintana.
Yes.
7R9A is a ratifying authorizing resolution for the Department of Public Safety Division of Fire for an application acceptance of grant funds to aid in efforts to increase and maintain the number of trained frontline firefighters available to the city. 9B is a ratifying authorizing resolution for the Department of Public Safety Division of Police for the acceptance of a donation. This is the Google donation. Through 7R9B, Council of the Whole to adopt.
Roll call.
Amador,
Yes.
Gonzalez,
Yes.
Yes.
Callum,
Yes.
Guyver,
Yes.
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 Trump absent, President Quintana.
Yes.
7R12A is a authorizing resolution for the Department of Water and Sewer Utilities for a bid contract for Phase 1A of the sewer cleaning and rehabilitation. Council of the Whole to adopt.
Roll call.
Amador,
Yes.
Gonzalez,
Yes.
Yes.
Callum,
Yes.
Guyver,
Yes.
Osborne,
Yes.
Ramos,
Yes.
Trump absent, President Quintana.
Yes.
On communications, 8A is an ordinance amending Title 10 Finance and Taxation by adding and establishing Chapter 31 entitled Labor Peace Agreements for Hotels where the city has a financial interest. Council of the Whole to table at this time.
Okay. Roll call.
Amador,
Yes.
Gonzalez,
Yes.
James,
Yes.
Callum,
Yes.
Guyver,
Yes.
Osborne,
Yes.
Ramos,
Yes.
Trump absent, President Quintana.
Yes.
So we're not going to do anything with Bayonne Hotels?
No,
Good.
they're on their own.
Weehawken. That's where you're.
Wrong city.
Go on, continue.
8B is an ordinance to amend and supplement Title 18, Chapter 5, Security, Article 1, Housing Guards, 18:5-1.1, Armed Security Guards Required. This would add a new section, 18:5-1.1C, permitting to petition to reduce or increase the hours of armed security guards for public or private buildings with 50 or more housing units, and amending 18:5-1.5 to require surveillance cameras for near entrances and exits of said buildings. Councilwoman MacGyver wishes to move, second by Councilman James, to advance to first reading.
Roll call.
Oh, before we do that, I want you to know in your folder is an amended version of this. This amended version is what you will be voting on today.
Mr. President,
Yes, Councilman.
like I mentioned at the pre-council meeting yesterday, I'm hopeful that we can agree to create a separate ordinance for those buildings between 50 and 100 units. I had proposed originally an amendment to the ordinance for large apartment buildings, 100 units or more, which would allow the city to impose special conditions for those properties that have demonstrated history of not providing, adequate security for their residents. I know there was a desire to amend that to include those properties between 50 and 100 units, which, again, I don't have an issue with, but I believe that needs to be dealt with as a separate ordinance. Those buildings between 50 and 100 units, if you impose across-the-board security requirements, these property owners will petition before the Rent Control Board, and in most cases, they will grant them increases that are passed on to tenants. So essentially, you know, if there are security requirements that are going to be imposed on buildings between 50 and 100 units, I don't have an issue with it. I believe it needs to be dealt with as a separate ordinance, and there should be a mechanism in there where you can address those property owners that do have a demonstrated history of not providing good services to their tenants. But to label, you know, every property across the city between 50 and 100 units as problematic, and now require them to have security, where in the past they didn't have to have security, and then those costs are potentially going to be passed on to the tenants, you know, to me, I have an issue with. And I would ask through your chair and the clerk, I know the staff of the rent control office is saying that those increases are not eligible to be passed on to the residents, but I did request through your chair and the clerk an opinion in writing from that office that that is the case. And I would further ask that there is counsel that is assigned to that office, which is very qualified on rent control matters, who should render an opinion to this council regarding the potential increases being passed on to tenants.
Mr. Clerk, as noted, Councilman Ramos is concerned.
Yes, sir.
Mr. President,
Yes, Councilman Amador.
I totally agree with Councilman Ramos. I think by moving it from communications to first reading, it's not a problem. I support this. But I think we need to kind of tweak it a little bit, so before the final approval, because I'm in the same situation.
Yeah, and through your chair, Mr. Clerk, I would ask that if Elmer and Ron could possibly work on creating, you know, two separate ordinances, one that pretty much requires those units between 50 and 100, which I believe is the councilwoman's concern and intent, then the original ordinance, which is for those 100 units or more, that we're able to deal with on a special condition basis, which was the original intent of my amendment. I think once the two got together, that's when we decided originally to kind of hold it up until we kind of figure out what the differences were, and I really believe there are two separate ordinances.
Council President, so basically yesterday, Councilman Ramos made some good points in regards to buildings within the North Ward, a senior building specifically, who opt not to have armed security guards because they feel, you know, unsafe with guns in their building and so forth. So we presented a new amendment that each council member got a copy of that gives buildings the option of armed or unarmed security. The issue is security for buildings. So I don't see that as a separate ordinance, and I'm not pulling back my ordinance. I welcome any council member to come and meet, because I gave a memo and a copy of the amendment back early January to each council member. Only one council member approached me with a edit or revision, and that was Councilman Gonzalez. And so I gave everybody an option to take a look at it. I gave each office a copy with a memo, and I would expect for council members to reach out if they had any questions or any revisions. As I have been preaching on this council since I entered here in July, we have a huge issue across the board in our city regarding buildings from 50 to 100. And while everybody has an opinion regarding if that can increase rent and so forth, like I said yesterday in a pre-council meeting, I spoke to rent control, and rent control can do a statement or whatever it is that's being requested, but when I had consultation with them, that was not an area where people can come before the rent control board and ask for an increase. However, we can definitely take this offline to discuss further, but at the end of the day, this is a serious situation. While I understand landlords and developers and management companies will be calling, complaining to some who have relationships with them, I am here at the best interest of the citizens, which I would expect, and I know my council colleagues are as well. And we have a severe issue with our buildings, 50 to 100, many of them senior buildings within my ward that do not have security, and we have a severe issue. I get calls every day about different crimes committed in those buildings and people being unsafe. So my number one priority is the residents of the Central Ward in the city of Newark. And so at the end of the day, I would hope that we would have a conversation to discuss after it moves out of communication, and I welcome all conversation and whatever we need to do to move it forward. But while we're asking for two to be drafted and all of this extra, you know, whatever we want to do with this ordinance, I would like for it to happen as soon as possible, because I don't want to continue to wait another 7 months to get an ordinance through. Because before when I came on the council, I had worked with Councilman Ramos. He had a meeting. For whatever reason, the amendment he had pushed forward, or it was in play when I got here, it got pulled back. He had withdrew that. And from whatever meeting he had with residents, and here we are today in February, and still, we still having this conversation. So whatever the pleasure of the council, we can get together, we can talk, we can discuss, but whatever the request is, I would ask for those things to happen as soon as possible, because this is a severe issue in our city.
Mr. President, could I just
Okay.
real quick?
I think the councilwoman changing it, modifying her amendment to unarmed or armed, gives the landlords or that opportunity to not have an armed guard. I think that complements what Councilman Ramos is talking about. I just, in this, however, I think we're missing Councilman Ramos' special conditions. So possibly if we just added the special conditions, would that make it more tenable, and we can talk about that offline?
Yeah. I just want to say that, I'll make it clear that for the last 12 years I've served on this council, I've had the best interests of my residents at heart. I was the original author of the security ordinance for the city of Newark for large apartment buildings. I was also the author of the ordinance which requires apartment building owners of large properties to have surveillance equipment. And when I had the amendment proposed regarding the imposition of special conditions, it was for those buildings with 100 units or more. When Councilwoman MacGyver, came into office, she wanted to address issues, and rightfully so, for those smaller buildings between 50 and 100 units. And when Elmer and Ron worked on merging the ordinances, we agreed that it did not work, which is why I pulled back, and I had suggested months ago that there should be a separate ordinance related to 50 and 100 units, so it doesn't take away from my intent, which was circulating through this council for 8 months, to create a process where we have special conditions for those properties for 100 units or more. So I stand with that. That's where I've been for the last few years. I drafted the original security ordinance. It got adopted. I drafted the requirement for surveillance equipment for large apartment buildings. And I'm not taking away from the fact that I do believe we have to address issues for those buildings between 50 and 100 units, but that has to be done separately from the large apartment buildings. And that's my only position.
Mr. President, if I may interject at this point, council members, I spoke with the council attorneys earlier today, and I've asked them to convene a meeting with all of the interested parties and get a resolution to the issues here before the next council meeting. So by advancing this to first reading, you will still have time to make the adjustments, separate it into two ordinances, or whatever is finally agreed upon.
And get also the opinions from the Rent Control Board concerning the possibility of increases being passed on to residents and tenants.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
And from the Corporation Council, Councilman Ramos indicated that he wanted something from the Corporation Council's office.
We will.
Yeah, it would be the attorney assigned to the Rent Control Board, because there is an attorney who's well-versed on rent control matters, who's assigned to do some work with the Rent Control Board. So I would trust that individual's opinion more than that office.
Okay, Mr. Clerk, did we also find out what effect this is going to have on Housing Authority properties?
Yes, sir.
In the ordinance already, Newark Housing Authority already has a stipulation for security. So this doesn't impact them. They're already mandated to security.
All right.
As I read the ordinance, well, at least the title here, it says that the tenants have the right to petition to reduce or increase.
Yep, they
So
sure.
we're saying here armed or unarmed, but then the tenants have
They
the right
still-
to request more time for armed guards. So there might be a conflict, an internal conflict within the ordinance, indicating that they say here that landlord has the option of having armed or unarmed, but we are giving the tenants the option of petitioning the city to increase the hours of the armed guards.
Correct.
So it might be conflicting.
It's been like that for like years. So I don't, that language there, we did not add. That has actually been in the ordinance already for petition, which many people complain about as well regarding the petition process, because most buildings, they want to have armed security, but many tenants are scared to sign a petition because they think they're going to be penalized for signing. So that's a whole nother issue, but that piece of the ordinance has been in, I guess, since Councilman Ramos has, put through the first one and adopted. So that's not any new language that we added, just FYI.
And Mr. President, I just want to make it clear, the original security ordinance, there isn't a provision in place which allows tenants to petition to add. The ordinance is very specific. You have an apartment building with 100 units or more, there's one common entrance, you have to have 24-hour security with a minimum of 8 hours of armed guard. That's the law right now. And you have to have surveillance cameras in the perimeter of the property covering the parking lot, which is something that I sponsored along with Councilman Quintana. So that's the ordinance right now. The ability of tenants to petition or request, those are all new ideas that are being considered right now, I would imagine.
Council President, I just want to be very clear, and corporate counsel can chime in if they have the ordinance. We did not add any language to the ordinance regarding the petition piece. That has been in the ordinance since the last time it's been amended or adopted. The residents have the option to ask for 24-hour security, armed security, but they have to petition. That has been there. I did not add that language. That isn't any new language that I introduced to the ordinance. That's in the current ordinance right now. I didn't add that in. I just want to be very clear about that.
That may be in the draft that was considered last year, but it's not in the ordinance that's on the books.
Okay. Corporate counsel?
I think you all are, Kenyatta Stewart, City of Newark Corporation Council. I think you all are saying the same thing. Essentially, you're right, Councilwoman. It was involved in the draft from prior to you getting here, but I
not
think,
what's in the book.
right, but it's not actually the law itself.
Okay.
I will spend some time with the folk at Rent Control and the outside counsel that does work with them about the concerns that we have. Of course, we'll make sure Elmer and Ron are involved to make sure that at least by the next meeting, we have something that we can all agree on. And if that's one ordinance or two ordinances, we're going to make sure we have something that we all can agree on.
Thank you.
Corp Counsel.
Continue. Let's continue, Mr. Clerk.
Councilwoman MacGyver, second by Councilman James, to advance 8B to first reading.
Roll call.
Amador,
Yes.
Gonzalez,
Yes.
Yes.
absent. MacGyver,
Yes.
Abstain.
Ramos,
Abstain.
Crump, absent. President Quintana.
Yes.
8C is an ordinance amending Section 23:15-2 multi-way stop intersection. This would designate Sussex Avenue and Newark Street as a multi-way stop intersection. Councilwoman MacGyver wishes to advance, second by Councilman President Quintana, to first reading.
Roll call.
Amador,
Yes.
Gonzalez,
Yes.
Yes.
Calhoun, absent. MacGyver,
Yes.
Osborne,
Yes.
Ramos,
Yes.
Crump, absent. President Quintana.
Yes.
8D is the ordinance amending Title II Administration, Chapter 6, Department of Law. This would expand the limitation on power to compromise, settle, adjust any rights, claims, or demands on or causes of action in favor or against the City of Newark to an amount not to exceed $40,000 without the approval of the Municipal Council.
Corporation Counsel.
Sure. Just for the record, Kenyatta Stewart, City of Newark Corporation Council. So I apologize I didn't mention this yesterday. I actually reached out to a few council members today. Back in August of 1990, the city ordinance actually connected the QPA and the law department's authority, kind of blends them together to say that, as long as the state continues to work in that process, they shall be connected. In 2015, July, the state actually increased the number for the QPA to go from 35,000 to 40,000 if you have a QPA. And some time ago, a few months ago, we actually adopted an ordinance that gave us a QPA, which of course led to us having the $40,000 authority. So, I mean, technically right now, the law essentially says that we have the authority now. However, I think it's important for the council to at least vote on the fact that we're asking this to be considered. I actually have to give Kathleen some credit. She and I talked yesterday, and it would probably be a good idea to give the council a report on a running basis of the matters that we will consider settling for the under $40,000 threshold, to make sure that you're kept abreast of what's going on. I don't want you all to not be out of the loop. This is more of a convenience for the backlog of cases and the issues that I mentioned yesterday in reference to some of the questions that the courts give us as far as our authority process and why does it take so long and things of that nature. So I'll ask you all, if possible, if you'll consider voting for the $40,000 increase, but like I said, I'll make sure that the council has a running report, and we'll also make sure the clerk office has a running report so that we have a record of it, and if you all have any concerns, we can deal with it.
Mr. President,
Ramos and Gonzalez.
Let's say, since we're going to get the report, it should be part of the ordinance itself, where it's, let's say, Corporation Council must provide a monthly report of all the settled cases, so that it becomes part of the ordinance and not something that is outside of the ordinance. That's, we have a change in Corporation Council and that person forgets, so we don't get it.
So, I mean, if you want to, you can adopt.
I believe we should amend the ordinance to include that, so that it's part of the ordinance.
Hey, Councilor Ramos.
and if I can, Corp Counsel, yesterday there was a conversation regarding the workmen's compensation cases.
Sure.
Which are typically vetted out very thoroughly, and, sometimes the process of those cases coming to the council for approval can impact, our ability to settle. So I would suggest, if possible, to also consider that as part of the amendment that could be included here.
Certainly, certainly.
Mr. Clerk, as noted.
Mr. President, since we are simply advancing this to first reading, we're not actually adopting it, we will make the changes and confer with Corporation Council before you adopt it on first reading at the next council meeting.
Right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Roll call. Roll call. Council of the whole.
Roll call.
Amador,
Abstain.
Gonzalez,
Yes.
James,
Yes.
McCallum,
Yes.
Shriver,
Yes.
Osborne,
Yes.
Ramos,
Yes.
Trump absent, President Quintana.
Yes.
On communications, 8E is an authorizing resolution for the office of mayor for the appointment to the Class 4 member of the Central Planning Board. Councilman Amador wishes to advance, second by Councilman Ramos. F is a authorizing resolution for 8F is a authorizing resolution for the office of mayor for the appointment to the Newark Parking Authority. Councilman James wishes to move, second by Councilman Osborne. G is a authorizing resolution for the office of the mayor for an appointment to be a regular meeting of the LGBT community commission. And we will skip H and do I as a authorizing resolution for the office of mayor for an appointment to the Class 2 member of the LGBTQ committee through 8I. Council of the whole to adopt.
Roll call.
Amador,
Yes.
Gonzalez,
Yes.
James,
Yes.
McCallum,
Yes.
Shriver,
Yes.
Osborne,
Yes.
Trump, I'm sorry, Ramos,
Yes.
Trump absent, President Quintana.
Yes.
Now let's go back to 8H. 8H, Council of the whole to defer action at this time. That means that this item will be returned to administration. Roll call.
Amador,
Yes.
Gonzalez,
Yes.
James,
Yes.
McCallum,
Yes.
Shriver,
Yes.
Osborne,
Yes.
Ramos,
Yes.
absent, President Quintana.
Yes. Continue.
On pending business, 9A is the authorizing resolution for the office of mayor for an appointment to for a regular meeting to the member to the LGBTQ commission. 9B is a authorizing resolution for the office of mayor for an appointment to the commission on homelessness. Through 9B, council of the whole to adopt.
Roll call.
Amador,
Yes on 9A, abstain on 9B.
Gonzalez,
The same here.
James,
The same.
McCallum,
Yes on A, abstain on B.
Shriver,
Yes on A, abstain on B.
Osborne,
Same.
Ramos,
Yes on A, and I also abstain on B.
Trump, absent President Quintana.
Same.
9A is adopted. 9B has not been adopted. It will be returned to administration. Council is told to accept the bingo and raffle license.
No.
Roll call.
Roll call.
Roll call.
Amador,
Yes.
Gonzalez,
Yes.
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 Osborne,
Yes.
Ramos, Ramos absent, Trump absent, President Quintana.
Yes.
We really need bingo and raffle.
Yes.
Yes.
Church.
Yes.
Hey, churches have raffles.
No.
All the seniors. Guys.
Let's move on to the hearing of citizens, and then we'll come back for council motions.
That's right.
Welcome to the Newark Municipal Council's hearing of citizens. Only those individuals who have signed up by the closing deadline will be permitted to speak this afternoon. When your name is called, please step to the microphone, state your name and address for the record. You will be given 5 minutes to speak. When you begin speaking, you will see a small timing device on the podium in front of you, which will begin counting down your time. When you reach the 4-minute mark, the yellow light will illuminate, indicating that you have 1 minute remaining for summation. When you reach the 5th minute, the red light will illuminate, and there will be an audible sound indicating that your time has expired. Please look forward, speak into the microphone. We are recording these proceedings, and if you turn away, we may miss part of your statement. Please address questions to the chair and not to individual council members. First speaker for this afternoon is Opal R. Wright. Deborah Salters.
Good afternoon, Deborah Salter, City of Newark. This took a turn for me again today. So, yesterday in the meeting, I know, joking or not, Mr. Quintana, you made a reference to only 6 of us being able to speak today, and when the clerk brought it out that, you know, people didn't have a chance to sign up, you were like, oh, good job. You know, now, like I said, joking or not, but what that says to me and to us is, and I used to get on Ramos about this all the time, because he'd leave before the constituent spoke. So I'm like, how are you going to lead somebody that you don't listen to? That tells us that you have a predetermined idea of what you're going to do regardless of what we say. So when you said that, to me, I'm like, well, you should have been, well, we need to reverse that back, because we need to hear from our citizens. But that wasn't what was said. You know, again, I said joking or not, but what that says is, you're not willing to listen to the needs and the desires and the complaints of the people, which is what you should be open to, because these are the people that you're supposed to be governing, okay? So if you don't like your job, then we need to take your seat from you. That's all I'm saying. So, and also I'd like to speak with Councilwoman MacGyver. The last council meeting, Lisa Parker was here, and she voiced her concerns about the water and the sinkhole and different things that she was saying. And she gave a full minute of her time to actually get a response from you all. No one had anything to say. But when Ms. Parker was gone, at the end of the meeting, Councilwoman MacGyver gave a message to us to give to Ms. Parker, for those of us who would see her, that, you know, welcome back, and she answered her questions and things of that nature. But what I'm saying is, you had an opportunity to answer her when she gave up a full minute of her time, and no one had anything to say until after she left. So that's kind of like a cowardice move, or not really being concerned at the moment with what the constituents are saying. The other thing is, matter of fact, I saw Jack Kelly come in here yesterday during a special meeting, and I'm still wondering why we're employing this guy as a consultant. Now, from my research, his consulting, I think, is regarding the health insurance for the city workers that he boggled and messed up. So if he messed it up the first time, why are we paying him to consult someone on how to fix it? That doesn't make sense. That's like someone who was supposed to fix your car, it's still broken, you're gonna hire somebody else to teach that person who broke your car how to fix it. That doesn't make sense. If it doesn't make dollars, it doesn't make sense. You all do not make concrete business decisions in that way. So that's money, and he's being paid by the city of Orange. So how is this working? Why are we paying this guy? I really don't understand. I don't. Because the BA's office, as it is with the QPA and the BA we have, they're getting over $300,000 in salaries. but we don't have money for the constituents to do the things that we need to be done. Again, no good business sense is being executed here. Let me give my email for those who need to reach out, because I've talked to a lot of seniors and people who are giving up on their homes. Someone just sold their home and moved somewhere else. Do not give up your homes. I know you're frustrated. Citizens, residents, warriorforthepeople@gmail.com. That's www.warrior4THPPL@gmail.com. Let's come together, sit down, reason, get some things together. Seniors, you have somebody out here that will help you. I know you don't have strong legs anymore. You don't have the energy to fight. They're coming against you for your properties. Do not give up your properties. We can sit down at the table. You have young, strong people out here that will come and help you. We will get things done. And I'm asking the residents of the city of Newark, what are you prepared to do? It is time for us to get up, take matters into our own hands, and stop waiting for someone else to give it to us. Again, the council, you all are employed by us to represent us. You have not been doing a good job. And I'm saying, okay, as a person like myself, a Newark resident, born and bred, love this city, encouraging people to move into our city. And the things that I say is so people know that they're not crazy. These things are really happening. The day of the auction, I was with some people in an automobile. There were deals being made outside. They didn't know people were in the automobile. Deals made to get the property, and it went down exactly the way that the auctioneer and the guys said it. They got the property they wanted, the deal was made outside. I had the woman call, professional, she wasn't living here, she lives here, has rented, now she has owned for several years. Encouraged her mother to move into the city, buy property. So I'm encouraging these people to come here, saying, oh, well, you can get something, let's work on it, and it's not happening. That happened. I had her call the office, and she called, spoke to the secretary on Tuesday. I'll give the information to, I can't think of her name right now, you know who's in charge. Then she called on Wednesday and spoke with her on speakerphone. The way that this woman was berated and treated was disgusting. But these are the people that we're telling can come here and have property. But if you don't have an envelope or a briefcase or a deal to make, you can't get the property.
President, could I just state that I believe Ms. Salters is making a pretty serious allegation regarding the possibility of some kind of collusion related to the auction, and I suggest that she be forwarded the number to the county prosecutor's office if she believes a crime was committed.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Anthony D'Angelo.
Appearing.
Good afternoon, City Council, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Anthony D'Angelo, Tony Service Center. I'm a Newark, born in Newark. I'm a native Newarker. We have a family-owned business on 16th Avenue and 16th Street, across from Westside Park for 75 years. We have a lifetime variance in the city of Newark. And I've been here a couple times. I showed the City Council, this is the third time here, that I'm trying to acquire South 17th Street and 16th Avenue, the two lots where it used to be a butcher and then an Appling liquor store 25 years ago. It's been empty. Well, I'm getting an education, and it's a good education, on how the mechanics of the property of the city works. That you could buy without no money through economic development and tie up city's property when you have people that have revenues and cash money on hand and willing to pay for the property. And I landlocked this property. I'm willing to pay. I originally offered June 11th of last year, $4 a square foot, where this other person closed with the city for $4 a square foot on July 11th, actually 30 days after I put in my letter of intent. I put another letter. Now, from then till now, I couldn't get heads or tails through economic development. I had to subpoena the records. Well, from then and now, that developer ended up supposed to be buying 4 pieces of property equaling with that 2 pieces of parcel and a couple other for $54,000. And not a dollar has been put aside, not 10%, not 5%, but it's tying up city property. I'm here, I'll even go $2 more a square foot, $6. And if somebody comes up, bring it to the table. I landlocked the property. I own the building next door, which I want to make a restaurant like McCourt and Grill, and I own the property behind it. And I own the service station 75 years to the right of it and have a lifetime variance, as I just mentioned. I'm going to give you this document, and I want it to be like PSE or whatever as a document stating that this is another letter of intent, and I just had a meeting before coming here with Annette Muhammad. There is no plans as of today, and from the closing through the City Council on July 11th, 2018, of what they're going to put on that piece of parcel. They're just sitting on that parcel's another, and there's no escrow tied up. So in the event, a year, 2 years, there's no statute of limitations. These properties could lay dormant to 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, and go back up being city-owned. I want to purchase it. I'll give you within 48 hours a certified check to the city of Newark, and I wanted to combine it with the restaurant as far as with the eatery and parking, and right across from Westside Park. Here, I would like to give the city council and the city clerk, there's a copy of the intent, again, the second time, all right? And there's no funds. There should be, from the last time I was here, December 19th, there should be a statute of limitations on how long that this piece of parcel, or any parcel through economic development, should be laid dormant, and should have some type of proceeds put up. Okay, so if you're gonna like 10% or whatever, like a city auction, if you're willing to come to the table and you want to do something with the property, you got to have some kind of format and what you want to do with it. But at least you should come to the table and say, listen, if you're offering to spend X amount of dollars, come to the table, put the money up in escrow, put your money where your mouth is. There's a lot of lip service. If that's the case, you buy property from the city of Newark, you go to the auction, well, I'll give you this amount of money. And guess what? That doesn't happen. It's back on the city again. This is supposed to be a business. Like this young lady, the first speaker spoke. If it doesn't make money, it don't make sense. Well, guess what? There's $54,000 that's supposed to have been spent a year ago, and the city of Newark don't have nothing but promise. All right? Now, I feel so heartedly, okay, being a born citizen in this city, and my dad, believe that at a lifetime variance here on 16th Avenue for 75 years, believe that the people should have at least money up front if you want to purchase the property.
Thank you, Mr. Angelo. Your time is up.
Thank you.
Councilman?
Yes. Tony, we know you're a lifelong resident, had a lifelong business, and we've discussed this at length. The person that's working with economic development put in an application for the property before you did.
Right.
Okay?
Yes, I have
So
no
it lay dormant for 8 years, 10 years.
25.
25 years.
25 years.
And nothing was done till economic development got someone to commit to try and develop the property. Only because you purchased the building next door last year is it now of interest to you. So it sat dormant for 25 years, and now you want to rush the person who's trying to develop it now. I think that's unfair. We need to respect that she put in interest to the property prior to you putting in interest.
Yes.
No matter how many letters you wrote. She's in the process of working with economic development to try and develop that property. It will not be an unknown. What she's going to build on it will be put out before the council, economic development department, and everyone will know what's going to be put on there. But prior to you expressing interest, she did, and economic development department decided to turn this parcel over, which had not been developed for 25 years.
Right.
So let's let that process work. It is not easy, it is not simple, it is not overnight. Just whoever gives the most money, we don't operate like that in the city of Newark. So we're going to see this development application through. If it does not go through, then you should be ready with the first right, being next door to purchase the property. But you expressed no interest until last year when you bought the property right next to this lot. So let's let it work it through its process. It's not just a higher bidder, because it would be unfair if you offered us $10 a square foot and the next day someone offers 16 and we snatch it from you. Wouldn't you think that'd be unfair?
Well, there should be.
I'm just saying, would you think that'd be unfair?
Councilman, I believe.
So, D'Angelo,
Yes.
you're a public speaker, this public speaker.
So we're going to talk after this, but let's let the economic development process work its way through. It won't take more than 18 months, because that's the limit we put in the city of Newark now. In the past, there was no limit on anyone buying property from the city of Newark. They could buy it, hold on to it for 30 years, and do nothing. We now, this council, this administration requires 18 months for them, once they actually acquire it, to put it into operational use. And if they do not, then it comes back to the city. We know now you've expressed your interest. You should be the first person we contact if this falls through, and I assure you that will happen. Thank you.
Thank you so
Next
much,
speaker.
Councilman.
I know, before the next speaker, the business administrator.
Eric Pennington, Business Administrator. With respect to Mr. D'Angelo, when he spoke in December and raised allegations that there was some impropriety in EHD, I gave him my card and indicated that he should contact me in case there was an issue, and I would help him resolve that issue. I have not heard from him until today, when he came back again and made accusations of impropriety. I understand that Councilman James has suggested that he is next in line. That's not necessarily the way it works. I would respect what Councilman James says. We'll see what's appropriate at that site, under the circumstances, with respect to development, and if Mr. D'Angelo's opportunity makes sense for what's going on, then we would certainly consider it. But I think that the accusations that he's made certainly need to be addressed and made clear that the administration has offered to speak with him and to address this issue, and I haven't heard from the man. So these subsequent accusations as well, I think, should be taken in that light.
Councilman McCollum.
I have a comment. As a follow-up to Councilman James, 3 or 4 years ago, we had to literally beg people to build and develop in the ward, and now they're running us down, running EHD down, running me down. Everybody wants to build, and it's being managed from the mayor's office to my office to EHD, and there are no shady dealings going on. We're trying to develop the land using the redevelopment agreements and do the best job possible to make sure that it benefits the residents. We work with the developers, but also we're concerned about the residents who have been living here. Yeah, and we want to put properties back on the tax rolls, which will benefit the residents, benefit the city. But to imply that things are not on the up and up, it's disingenuous, because that's not how we operate from top to bottom. And you have a good project, but there were people ahead of you that came wanting to develop the land, and we can't rush people, push people, because developers want to do something on the land. So there is a process. We're going to abide by the process. You'll be treated fairly in the process, as will a developer who has the land now. Okay, so just keep that in mind. Nobody's trying to, I like the idea of the project, personally, but we can't jump over people who has the property already.
Yes, Councilman, and then Councilman Ramos.
As I spoke today to Anthony, and I mentioned to Anthony that price is one of the considerations. It's not the only consideration. Let's say you may have a project that might not be the one that the city wants for that specific piece of property, and they may give preference to someone even at a lower price because the project is better for that location. So, as I indicated to you, EHD is a department that determines how the property is developed. You have to meet with them and abide by the rules. Say you are one of the people proposing to buy the land. In the final analysis, they will determine who buys the land at the end of the day.
Councilor Ramos.
Yeah, this isn't necessarily related to this gentleman's concern, but, you know, one thing I would ask is that I believe we come across a lot of instances where properties are designated to different entities, and then years go by, there's no activity or construction. I really believe that they're beyond their period of responsibility, and I'm not sure how many times the city has taken some kind of action to recoup properties. You know, and basically they sit there vacant for years, and originally they were owned by the city, now they're designated to a private property owner. You know, a few weeks back I asked for an update of how many properties have been actually developed in the last 5 years in these model neighborhoods. We've poured a lot of incentives in those areas, from demolition of vacant properties to other tax incentives. There's a lot in place in order to encourage development in some of these model neighborhoods. And I want to see like pictures of houses that have been built or complexes, you know, like I know property has been designated, but I don't know how much has actually resulted in actual development and these properties being back on the city tax rolls. So.
Councilor, I have another quick comment, President. Good point, Councilman Ramos. I would like a status on the report. We are designating developers for the properties. Then I'm hearing in my travels that they don't have the money to develop the properties. So that's concerning to me also. So I know I've sponsored properties to developers, and I just want to be sure that they're being managed, that the time frames are being kept under control and being abided by. And I'd like to know the status of what's going on with these properties that Angelo was talking about, just so we don't hold the properties for people who can't develop the properties.
Okay.
And
Councilor James.
And can you just tell us the time frame? When does the clock start as far as, I know it's 18 months that they have to develop a commercial property, and I believe 12 months for a residential property they have to rehab. Could you just reiterate that time frame and when it starts?
Sure. Annette Mohammed, Director of Redevelopment for the Department of EHD. Their time frame starts when they actually close. I met with Mr. D'Angelo this morning and explained to him the process that we don't, on these redevelopment agreements, take the money and then give over the property. It happens simultaneously. I explained to him specifically about this process, that the developer is doing everything that she is supposed to do. She is building housing. She is proposed to build housing there. Once she closes and files for site plan or zoning, he will be notified in that 200 feet requirement. Right now, this developer has submitted all her title work. We've had some back and forth with the title company. Her closing documents are being executed, and she should be closing within the next couple of weeks, actually.
Thank you.
Mr. Mohammed, as I stated, I don't, you know, I'm hearing that some of the developers do not have the money to develop. So I'm asking that you stay vigilant and make sure they meet the timelines.
So, and thank you, I will do that. We have stepped up our enforcement, so I'll make sure.
Okay. Thank you. Next speaker. Thank you, Ms. Mohammed.
10-4 Evans,
Not appearing.
Thomas Ibbing,
Not appearing.
Dion McCutcheon,
Not appearing.
Is there?
Appearing.
You guys let him come back now?
it expired.
Yeah.
Yeah, ready.
Name and address?
Dion McCutcheon, Newark Matters, Newark, New Jersey. I would like to thank the Southport councilman and the councilman at large Gonzalez for my first ever being here. You're the reason why I'm here. Because during my first ever coming here, I lived in Newark all my life. And the first time I got up here was June 21st, 2017. And the first time I tried to explain to you that there's a serious vehicular hazard waiting to happen where I live on Broad Street and Lincoln Park, you two conveniently had like a sidebar, which I thought was very unprofessional and disrespectful. So I'm glad that you actually did that, because now I'm here, and I would like to thank you, because I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for you. So thank you very much. That's number one. By the way, the concerns that I had with regard to that intersection have not been handled by any of you. Now, this was 2017. It's 2019, more than a year, and nothing has been done about that intersection. Incompetence? Maybe. Lack of concern? Hey, I'm on a council, I don't care, I'm too busy doing what I do, I don't really care about the citizens. Is that it? In any event, I gave you 4 suggestions. I'm going to repeat those suggestions, all right? A year and some change later, okay? Because I find it very disparaging, actually insulting to the citizens of Newark, in particular me, because I made the request. So I don't like for people to insult me. So I'm just gonna go over it real quickly. I'm gonna give you the 4 suggestions that I made, and then I'm gonna move forward because it's African American History Month, and I want to talk about some issues regarding that. The first one that I presented was direct the Traffic and Signals Department of Newark to install a delayed green signal light at the southbound Broad Street and Lincoln Park intersection. That was number 1. That probably will slow down the cars from making that turn. A delayed green, you guys familiar with that? You probably didn't even read it, did you? Number 2, invest in a radar speeding device for speeding at southbound intersection at Broad and Lincoln Park. That might deter these cars from coming around the corner doing 50 miles an hour. Number 3, install speed bumps at and during that turn at the intersection of southbound Broad Street, and Lincoln Park. This is number 4, make the southbound right lane at Broad Street and Lincoln Park a no turn on red intersection. I'm not going to read the entire thing. Now, I'm giving you those 4 suggestions again, a year and some change later. Hopefully, I don't have to come here next year and it's still the same thing. I don't know, do I have to get this to you? I got a minute 47. I want to talk about something about black history. One of my favorite subjects when I was in school, African American 1 and 2. I want to talk about something that's current. This governor in Virginia, Ralph Northam, it's amazing to me that in 2019 that African Americans have to endure this type of backlash, right? And what really puzzles me, this is just me, my ideas and what I'm thinking. I'm trying to figure out, what is this fetish? What is this, I'm talking to the city of Newark, really, I'm talking to everyone. What is this fetish with whites wanting to color their faces black? Because I don't see too many black people running around putting white stuff on their face trying to impression. I don't know what it is, but I have a name for it now. It's called color envy. It's come to like, they go to these sun tanning booths and they lay out on the beach and, want to get tan. They got all these tattoos. I call it color envy. I think they have this, in this complex where they really want color, but they despise us for having it naturally. I'm talking to the whole city. This is Black History Month. I'm going to talk black history. And it's amazing. I think it's amazing to me. And in fact, real quickly, if I can get this off in 20 seconds, what gives life to this planet is the sun, correct? It makes everything bloom and blossom in the spring and in the summer. Flowers, trees, everything grows. And they are so trying to get so much color, what gives life to this planet burns them. So I don't understand that contradiction.
Councilman James.
Mr. McCutcheon, Lincoln Park is not located in the South Ward. It's in the Central Ward.
No, I
Just
said,
for clarification. So that intersection you're talking about
Right.
is not in the South Ward. The Central Ward Councilwoman will respond. Thank you.
no, well, I said southbound.
Thank you.
I said on Broad Street southbound.
So your time is up. Let's move on.
You weren't listening again.
Thank you. Let's go.
Can-
Clerk?
Mr. President, that
I'm
concludes...
sorry, Council President, I just wanted to respond to two comments. One, Ms. Salters, moving forward at every council meeting, I will be responding to any public comments that I'm going to respond to at the end of the meeting. So last meeting, I don't even think it was last meeting, it might have been about 2 meetings ago, I responded at the end to all public comments, including the young lady that you mentioned. So it's not because I'm waiting for people to run out, it's because I'm waiting for the public to get through their session and to respond at the end of all public comments, and that will be how I will respond moving forward, just the FYI. Then Mr. McCutcheon, am I pronouncing it right? Yes, Mr. McCutcheon, to the left of you is someone from my office. If you can give them your suggestions for that intersection, we would be more than willing to try to look into them or, address your concerns. We weren't here the first time you came. Well, I wasn't here the first time you came, probably to the, mic, but we're here now, so we can be able to look into your concerns and try to address. Okay, thank you.
Clerk, the motions?
Mr. President, that concludes the list of speakers for this afternoon. The next hearing of citizens will take place at the Public Council meeting of February 20th, beginning at 6:30 p.m. Motions?
Councilman Amador.
To reiterate what I said yesterday about the Port Authority, with all the money that they're spending on one terminal or a couple of terminals, I'm sure that they can get out of their box and work on eliminating the flood situation on South Street. I know that it's on the schedule for this year by the City of Newark, but I'm sure that they could make a couple of contributions to the City of Newark by eliminating the flood situation, for example, on South Street and Route 22 and toward the South Ward, or Route 1 toward the South Ward, because those are accessible roads to the airport. The second one, I just got a message and also a few pictures and addresses, locations of where bulk garbage exists. And the amount of bulk is absolutely out of this world. It's immense because there's a lot of confusion, and people may not be aware that there's a limit in terms of what they can pick up. So I suggest that the city sends a letter in 3 languages, Portuguese, English, Portuguese, and Spanish, and inform the residents of the new rules regarding bulk garbage, because it's unbelievable. The pictures that I saw are absolutely off the wall. And speaking for the residents that I represent, out of about 12 locations, 10 are in the East Ward. So I suggest that we should send a letter to all the residents of the City of Newark indicating the new rules regarding bulk garbage.
Okay. Roll call.
Yes.
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 Yes. Councilman Gonzalez.
I said my time to Councilman.
Councilman James.
Okay, all right. First, Newark Public School System's having a community roundtable meeting this Thursday. It's going to be at the Weequahic High School Media Center at 6:30. My community meeting is going to be on the 16th, 9 a.m. to 11, 400 Hawthorne Avenue. All are welcome. There's going to be a census job fair, 21919, that's through the City of Newark. It's going to be at the Shani Baraka Center, 300 Clinton Avenue. That's February 19th from 11 a.m. to 3 p.m. We're going to have a NAN Tech Center first legal night at the NAN Tech Center, 400 Hawthorne Avenue. That's February 18th from 7 p.m. to 9 p.m. Residents will have the opportunity to meet and greet with local attorneys to discuss discrimination in the workplace, family law, civil rights, expungement, and tenant-landlord issues. And last but not least, the City of Newark Summer Youth Program applications are now open to ages 14 through 24 to be employed from July 8th to August 16th. Apply online until March 31st. The application is https://application.newarkwep.org. If you have any questions, you can also contact 973-273-6064. Thank you.
Second.
Roll call. Any more?
Yes.
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 Yes, Councilman McIver.
Just a few announcements. First, I would like to make a motion of profound sorrow and sympathy for the family and friends of the young lady Jayla Green, who passed away here in the city of Newark. She was a student at Barringer High School. We're going to be kicking off the Central Ward Youth Commission for Central Ward youth ages 14 to 18 years old. If you're interested in signing up, please send us an email at centralward@ci.newark.nj. There are going to be a couple of community meetings this week, kicking off today. Lincoln Park will be having a redevelopment meeting tonight from 6:30 to 8:30 p.m. at the Link Community Charter School located at 23 Pennsylvania Avenue. There will be a Lower Broadway Neighborhood Association meeting tomorrow, February 7th at 6 o'clock p.m. at St. Lucy's Church. And International Youth Organization is kicking off their Women in Construction event. Any women in the city of Newark who's interested in getting a job or a career in construction can apply directly at 703 South 12th Street, of course in Newark, or you can call 973-621-1100. Those are my announcements. Thank you.
Second. Roll call.
Yes.
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 Councilman? Yes. Councilman Osborne.
Yeah, I just have one motion. Mr. Clerk, to your office, if we can request a follow-up meeting with the Port Authority regarding the construction career jobs at the new terminal being built. We had a brief conversation in the hallway yesterday, and all they mentioned was a diversity program, but they didn't say what steps they were taking to guarantee or at least ensure that some North residents get opportunity to work on a project out there. So if we can set up a meeting, I'll convene it, so, all right. Next.
Roll call.
Yes.
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 Yes, Councilman Ramos.
Thank you, Mr. President. At the yesterday, I mentioned the desire on behalf of our office to have a sit-down with representatives from the Newark Municipal Court. I believe we could do this through our Public Safety Committee. You know, last week I did a walkthrough of one of our business corridors, and we definitely have a lot of quality of life problems in different parts of the city. And in discussing some of these issues with our local police officers, one of the frustrations on their part is that they're trying to do the best they can to abate some of those issues and concerns. And in some cases, they do issue summonses, and it turns out that a lot of those summonses are being dismissed in court. And some of these issues then continue in some of these small business areas. And I believe we definitely need some collaboration and cooperation from our court. So I would ask through your chair and the clerk for us to schedule a public safety committee meeting and have a conversation regarding some of these quality of life issues that I believe we can do a much better job of addressing. The next thing I want to bring up is that, you know, I saw the email from Director Thomas regarding the bulk garbage pickup situation, and I believe beyond the 10 items per household, you know, we have a crisis in our city when it comes to large apartment buildings, literally disposing, you know, furniture from apartments that are vacated, and you drive down Mount Prospect on any bulk garbage day, and you have, you know, 60, 70, 80 pieces of bulk garbage out of one apartment building. We do pick up one day a month. I believe the city's a victim of its own very generous bulk garbage policy, which we had for years. I used to see people from Belleville, Nutley, other towns drive up to Newark and dump their garbage in the North Ward. And now, you know, I commend the director for trying to put some restrictions, but unless there's some kind of enforcement and issuing of summonses, this kind of behavior is not going to stop. And I believe through your chair and the clerk and the BA, there needs to be some creative thinking around large apartment buildings, because that does create a huge backlog for your sanitation workers when they're out there. Sometimes it takes them 2 or 3 days to pick up bulk in one ward, because they're basically dealing with some of the larger buildings that have a whole lot of bulk garbage. Through your chair and the clerk, I would also ask the administrator to give us a status on the, we voted and approved a contract for tree trimming and I believe stump removal some months ago. And I would just like to get some kind of schedule of when those activities are going to begin. And if there's any kind of activity that's already been done, you know, what areas have been covered. We do have a large number of requests, I would imagine, by ward for these services, and I know the city hasn't had them in place in some time, but I'd just like to know what's the status of the implementation of that contract.
Yeah, Mr. Clerk, before we call the vote, Councilman, regarding the bulk, you know, my and friends that I know and people that own buildings here, like 1060 Broad Street, any of their bulk, they have never put it on this. They have their own container that is put in a container and taken away. And there was something that we need to, the law department needs to look into it, because the individual who manages Essex Plaza said to me that in the agreement, there was an agreement that they would have to put a dumpster where those items would be put, refrigerators and et cetera, and they would put them in, and they were responsible. So some of these buildings, as Councilman Raymond indicates, they're bringing out furniture, refrigerators, 6, 7, 8 refrigerators. They should get their own container and put their own bulk. And we should do that. I mean, they're making enough money, some of these buildings, that they should be taking care of that concern. If Essex Plaza was doing it because they were following the rules of 25 years ago, so we need to look at the Corporation Council. You should look into that, because they were, and in some of those buildings that receive tax abatements, you should look at that too, because they should be responsible for that bulk.
Mr. President, let me add to that. Yeah. Let's say any building that is over 3 floors is a commercial building, and they should be treated differently than buildings that are, let's say, residential, or that are, let's say, less than 3 families and less. I don't understand why is it that we cannot require them to have a private hauler to get the garbage. We are providing a service to them, and we are not, a service that they don't deserve, and they are not paying for it.
Councilor Ramos.
Yeah, I had one other motion that I wanted to put out there, and it's really just a request for, you know, some kind of investigation, the possibility. You know, the other day I met with, you know, a group regarding some issues with the hotel workers, and one of the observations that came out of that meeting was that the city currently has, a lot of development activity, especially around the downtown area, and it's almost a requirement that the developer include, some retail space. So typically you see retail on the first floor, and then you see 3, 4, 5, 6 stories of residential. And if you drive up and down Broad Street and even by the new NJ Pack building, you notice that the storefronts are empty. And part of the reason I believe that they're empty is that the amount of rents that these private owners are seeking is way too high for some small businesses in the community to consider possibility of setting up shop there. What you see is overrepresentation of 7-Elevens. I don't think Broad Street could handle, another 7-Eleven because we have about 5 of them, and Dunkin' Donuts. But I do believe there's an opportunity as we structure some of these abatement agreements. We typically look at, affordability when it comes to apartments, but I don't think we've been in a position where we look at affordability when it comes to the retail space that's being constructed in some of these new developments. And that may be a very good way for us to encourage, local minority businesses to possibly occupy some of that space, whether they operate, a barber shop, a beauty salon, a dry cleaner business. The biggest obstacle in the downtown area is the amount of rent per square foot. And I would ask through your chair and the clerk and the administrator that we'd have, conversation and look at whether or not we can build some affordability into the retail space.
I was just going to say, not to beat a dead horse about the trash in bulk, because we talk about it a lot, like literally, so it's definitely an issue. So I agree with all of my council colleagues about it. We do, one thing I'm going to ask through this, through the BA and corporate counsel, is to revisit what the process is for our courts, because I know my office, as well as many other offices, have been working with code enforcement, and kudos to code enforcement and the Department of Sanitation with finding people for not being in compliance with our ordinances that we have. Literally every day, multiple times a day, code enforcement goes out, fines. And what we are hearing is that when they get to court, all of those are being thrown out. Like literally, we get a lot of complaints about that. And so we need to revisit that as an administration. I don't want to go into detail because, I don't want to say too much or speak about what judges are throwing out, but we definitely need to revisit that if it's based off training code enforcement again or whatever we need to do to try to get some of these fines to stick. But if people can just violate our ordinances and then go to court and get the tickets thrown out, they're going to just continue to do the same thing. And so we definitely should address that. And I don't, of course, need a comment right now, but that's just something that's been a ongoing complaint to my office, literally. In terms of the tree stump removal thing, we did get a list of all of the tree stumps that we had. Someone requested that a while ago. We just didn't get a schedule. I know that I had asked through the department when was that going to start, which I think it started a week ago. The vendor came on, but we don't have a specific schedule for the removal of the stumps. Thank you.
We got to do a roll call? Oh, you want to talk on that same, or you got something? Continue.
In most cases, when I mentioned, for example, when the councilwoman mentioned the tree stumps, the reason why I find that it's very important for the city to take some action now that we have a contract with the tree stump removal company, it's because it's a little before the spring of this year, which is reserved in most cases for tree planting. And rather than be reacting, we should be proacting. Work on the stump removals now, so when we get to the spring, sometime during the spring, we do tree planting. I have a company that is waiting for a lot of stumps to be removed so they can replace those stumps with new trees. And we can't do anything until the stumps are actually removed. So we need to take some action.
Sure. Councilman?
Just a quick question. I was approached yesterday by a constituent that live in a apartment building, and she said, I think it was an RPM building, that they changed their lease to say that they're not allowed to put bulk garbage out. That they were told that they had to just let it stay in the apartment, but they couldn't put it out on the curb. Is that legal?
You're saying that they,
Yeah. Me neither.
I don't know. That's a policy, probably the building. Okay, we come over.
just address three of the issues. It sounds like that's a company that has to remove it themselves as opposed to have the city do it. I know we have worked with Director Thomas about a number of, right. So we've worked with a number of the large buildings that have said, listen, we recognize that we've been at least getting this service for free, and now we're going to be charged by the city, and they've accepted that responsibility. There is an issue with the Housing Authority as well. Some of their buildings are having some huge issues that we're dealing with. And what's happening, and it sounds like it's happening in this situation here, is that the actual building is charging their residents because they recognize that it's a cost associated with it. I'll, talk to you offline about the specifics to try to work out that situation there. In reference to the tree stump issue, I actually was on my phone texting Director Thomas. He indicated that he'll get the list back to you all. It's supposed to start Monday. So the tree stump removal and things of that nature. So it's officially starting on Monday, from what I understand. Hopefully they can, do what they have to do to get that process going. And then, Councilwoman, I know you spoke about the issue with code enforcement and cases being dismissed. Actually, there was a scheduled training that had to be rescheduled yesterday. They're going to be rescheduled for next week on this training the people in code enforcement. There was an issue with the location that they were putting the information on the tickets. However, we did recognize that this is a huge issue, and as a matter of fact, the mayor has asked that I begin to track it and give him a report on a monthly basis on the number of cases, including illegal dumping, code enforcement, and things of that nature that have been dismissed or resolved. And I gave them a report last week of what has been going on in 2018. I'll share that with you all as well.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Roll call on that, on that motion, the motions? Yes.
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 Yeah.
Yes.
Yes, before we leave, just to the administration, in terms of recently the inspectors are going and shutting businesses down. And when they go into these businesses, they come in like with a group and the people are eating and there's no way, there has to be a manner where you tell folks this restaurant is going to be closed. Not walk in there and with no courtesy and no respect. I just treat people like it's just, I'm going to close up your business right now. And this is going on and on. And let me tell you the other thing. They closed a business in the North Ward the other day, and what they done was this. They removed all the folks from the restaurant. They said, and they put locks. Second of all, the city's going to get, we would have been, if those stoves would have been on, we would have been liable because the locks that they put on were locks that could not be opened. And that owner of that business was paranoid because he felt that the stove was on. And when you leave a stove on, you know what occurs. So we have to tell our folks, there's a way, or we have to have we give a seminar on how to deal with folks when you go to their businesses and you close them down. You can't just go in, people are eating, we're eating, and they were told you got to get out of here. There's a way to say, look, we're going to close this in half an hour. It happened in East Newark yesterday at Top's Diner. Whatever occurred, they said you have to 2 o'clock. They were shutting the diner. Whatever the reasons were, they said you have to 2 o'clock. Business is being closed, and maybe they had some violations, but it was done professionally. But the way it was done in the North Ward was they walked in from the Department of Neighborhood Services to every other department, and fire and walked in and said, "You're closing this place down. Everybody out of here." And did not give enough time for that person to make sure that the stoves were off, the electricity was off, but they said, "You got to get out," and then they put on new locks, and that person had to wait till the next day because they couldn't get in to get the paperwork. The license, they had already a license, and they renewed, but the city took a while in sending it forward to them. So again, the person was looking for his license. He couldn't get into his own building. So we have to have some way of listening. Now we got to go to some of the big folks here. They got restaurants that maybe they don't even have inspections, and they're still running their restaurants at the Prudential or wherever else. And you know, a citizen who is trying to come up and have a business in the North Ward, it was unfair. The way this person was handled, the way he was treated, there has to be another way of treating folks.
Yeah, Councilman, so I do recognize that, you know, we have to be sensitive to the folk who are there, the patrons that are there. I mean, you know, it's not their fault that they're eating out of a place that may have some issues. But Councilman, we also have to recognize that, unfortunately, some of this is health concerns, and we don't want, I wouldn't want to put the city in a space where, you know, I'm gonna use the BA, for example, is eating a hamburger and something goes wrong, and I left the place open for 2 hours. But what I will do is I'll speak to the folk in code enforcement about that process that they're using to make sure that we consider the sensitivity that should be surrounded with the constituents that are there. And with that said, I do understand that they do an inspection of the location and make sure that, you know, the gas and things like that is off. I'm not sure what happened in that circumstance, and I'll just follow up with them to make sure that all the code enforcement officers that are going inside are trained properly.
Okay, yeah, Council.
I just want to say, we had the same complaint that Councilman Quintana mentioned with my local businesses in the downtown area. They had a major complaint regarding how they were being shut down due to licenses and different permits that were not, you know, they didn't have, or whatever the case might be. Most of it was not good dialogue or communication between the departments, the online system. There were like a ton of different issues once we broke it down for each business. However, when I spoke to the manager of code enforcement, they talked about the different process they have when they go in and shut businesses down, which they try to do early in the morning or towards the end of the day. I mean, I don't know if that's true or not, but it seems crazy to just go shut a place down that's full of, you know, people in there eating or doing business or so forth. But we were getting complaints like that before. Another piece which is separate, but I'm gonna just mention it. At some point, there was like a task force created, I believe, via the administration with all of the different departments related to businesses. And one of the things that I spoke to the task force months ago was the idea of combining some of the licenses and permits, because there seems to be a total like issue in regards to some businesses that have to get like 5 different licenses. They have to go on and apply for each, and it just makes no sense. Like, we need to try to get to the 21st century of business registration and licensing and permits. And that's something that I will hope the administration, they said they were working on.
Well, yeah, you should actually anticipate that before the end of February. It should be before you all. One of the examples I believe you voted on today was the shared kitchen example. That was one of the examples that, you know, we recognize that, you know, you shouldn't have to go through all these, you know, steps to get the necessary licenses, but you should anticipate sometime in February that there will be a merge of the different licenses.
Councilor Ramos.
Yeah, I just want to piggyback off what the councilwoman mentioned. Our office is working on legislation now, which would essentially package a lot of these licenses, especially related to restaurants, because, you know, and to me, sometimes there isn't an excuse, right? So the inspector goes out, tells a property owner they have to have a business license. In some instances, they go out there 4 or 5 times before they shut this place down. And I think sometimes it's just like a refusal on the property owner, on the business owner's part, to do what they're supposed to do. But it's also a very complex process. Sure. The city went online. For a while, the online system wasn't working well. Then there were major delays with fire inspections. So there's a lot of different components that they have to put together in order for them to get their place, you know, to be legitimate as far as a business is concerned. And some of these licenses are really ridiculous. You need a license to sell milk and, you know, ice, and some of them are $5, $10, and through what we hope to accomplish via this ordinance is, we've talked to business owners, they're willing to pay more if they have to come to City Hall less and waste less time getting these little tiny licenses. And what we hope to accomplish via the packaging process is to increase the fee, but at the same time make it easier for some of these businesses to come in and get what they need to get. You know, if they have 4 different locations, they have to get 4 different fingerprint certifications, which really makes no sense. It's the same owner. So the little things like that have to be improved on our end, because we're making it very difficult, especially for a city that has a lot of small, you know, minority ethnic businesses. Some folks, you know, their primary language is not English, and they may own a business, and now they have to hire someone to help them register their business in this new system. So there's a lot of obstacles that, unfortunately, you know, government puts up that makes it difficult for businesses to set up. And I'm sure, and I know the business well. This guy, you know, he works 24/7, and part of it is that, you know, they need to do what they need to do on their end, but I think we also have to simplify the process on our end as well.
Okay, thank you. Roll call.
Amador? Yes. Gonzalez?
Yes.
James absent, McCallum absent, MacGyver?
Yes.
Osborne?
Yes.
Ramos? Yes. Crump absent, President Quintana?
Yes.
Council of the whole to adjourn?
Roll call.
Amador? Yes. Gonzalez?
Yes.
James absent, McCallum absent, MacGyver? Yes. Osborne? Yes. Ramos? Yes. Crump absent, President Quintana?
Yes.